We started Switch4Good with the vision to disrupt societal norms around dairy foods. Big Dairy has been lying to all of us for far too long, and we are here to set the record straight. It's our mission to address the destruction caused by this non-essential industry that's robbing us of our health, robbing mother cows of their calves, and robbing our children of a safe, equitable future. We battle Big Dairy by creating widespread change through our 4 pillars: improved human health, enhanced everyday performance, dietary justice, and planetary responsibility. Whether it's educating the public with our innovative billboard and digital campaigns, fighting to get millions of underprivileged children plant-based milk in schools, working to change food policy at corporations like Starbucks and the International Olympic Committee, we're educating millions of people about the benefits of ditching dairy. Your generous tax-deductible donations fuel our trailblazing campaigns and help us keep the hard-earned positive momentum going. Mark my word, dairy will be the first animal-based food to topple, setting a cascade effect for all others to follow. Don't you want to be a part of this monumental effort? We need your support to move the needle, though, and change millions more lives. Won't you donate now to change the world for good? No amount is too small. Thank you for all you do, and happy holidays.
Hi, thanks for being with us on this podcast episode. Today, Dotsie and I are going to talk a lot about the dairy industry. So I thought I would just open with my own dairy story. Because if there's one thing that I have learned from co-hosting this podcast, it is that if you want to help animals improve your health and be part of the solution in terms of climate change, giving up dairy is more important than giving up meat. In fact, every single doctor, except for one whom Dotsie and I have interviewed over 260 episodes, has told us that it is far more significant to give up dairy than meat if you want to improve your health. Wow, I was really surprised by that. Most of us who are now vegan were vegetarian first because we thought it was healthier or that the meat industry was worse for animals. But it turns out that the life of a dairy cow is horrific. She dies in the end anyway, way too soon, and is eaten just like chicken, pigs, and beef cattle. But she suffers for about 5 long years before her death, whereas the others, chickens, pigs, beef cattle, they're killed when they're very young, so they don't have to suffer as long. And I've discussed this on the show, but it's really worth mentioning again because so many people resist becoming vegan because they don't want to give up their cheese. I hear that so often. And to quote our guest today, you don't have to give up cheese. You just have to be open to switching brands. Anyway, I had cut out meat when I was 14. I stopped wearing animals and using products tested on animals in my 20s. And then I kind of sat on my laurels for 2 decades, fooling myself into thinking that, well, eggs, milk, they're not that bad. I thought that, and this was my excuse, if I gave up dairy, I would feel deprived and that would spiral me back into my eating disorder, which was restricting, binging, and then throwing it all up. Now, that was my story. That was my rationale. And it took many years and many messages for me to finally have the courage to say, you know what? I am no longer going to eat milk or eggs. I have to really credit Bob Linden, who had asked me every time I was on a red carpet if I had given up dairy. And my friend Karen Dawn, who said that it was the duty of everyone who consumed cow's milk to watch undercover videos about what takes place on dairy facilities. And so I did that. And then, of course, my brother Jonathan, he'd given up cow's milk when he was 16. And he called it pus and excretions. And then my friend Nick Tyler, who didn't say anything at all, who just listened as I blathered on with excuses about why I was still eating yogurt and Caesar salads. And he was so silent that I could actually hear how lame I sounded. And when I finally gave up dairy on October 10th, 2010, I changed as a person so deeply. I can't even describe it to you. I thought I was doing it for the animals, but it turned out that, wow, I got so many benefits from it. I've also said this before, but it was like my heart cracked open and the scales just fell from my eyes, and I just became more attuned to injustices around me and the biases inside me. And I also, ironically, had an awakening that improved my relationship with food so that I was even farther away from reverting back to my disordered eating. I have some regrets in life, and I think that the biggest one is that I did not give up dairy earlier. It was 33 years from the time I gave up meat to the time I actually ended up giving up dairy. And I feel like I just wasted a lot of time. I am now quite obsessed with the horrors of the dairy industry, and the biggest focus of my work as an animal investigator has been on dairy farms and calf ranches because it is a very dirty business, folks. If you go to switch4good.org, you'll find out a lot of articles about how much the taxpayer here in the United States is paying for this industry that really should not exist because it is so harmful to human health, to animal welfare, and to Mother Earth. You can also learn at switch4good.org all about the nefarious reason Americans have so much cheese in their diets in the first place, and why kids are getting sick in schools from being forced to take the milk cartons that are put on their trays at lunch. And I know Dotsie has talked a lot about this over the many episodes we've done, but it's certainly worth reading again and sharing with others. So I hope that you'll all watch the film that we discuss in this episode, especially as my friend Karen Dawn recommended to me, if you still have dairy in your diet. And thank you so much for listening to me now and for listening to our very interesting interview with our upcoming guest. And I am now going to introduce her.
And what I've learned is that dairy cows are actually treated much worse than cows that are raised for meat and leather. The cyclical nature of what goes on at these dairy farms, and this is small farms all the way up to industrial giant farms. It doesn't matter. So when people say, oh, but I buy my milk from a small farm, it doesn't matter. These cows are literally born into a dystopian slavery.
Our guest today has done whatever it takes to grow the vegan community by working tirelessly in many different avenues. A vegan for over 20 years and a former restaurateur, Lisa DeCrescente is now the Director of Special Projects at Farm Animal Rights Movement, which advocates for animal rights, veganism, and sustainability. She's a board member for Sustainable Earth Eating, which is a nonprofit shedding light on animal ag as a major contributor to climate change. And she's the writer of the powerful, heart-wrenching short film, The Next Girl, which has already received a plethora of awards and has a twist of an ending that will leave you floored. It certainly did to me, by the way. We don't want to give too much away, but this is a really terrific film. You definitely want to stay on with us as we talk about this movie and hear Lisa's thoughts on how to be the most effective difference maker possible. We're super excited to have a conversation with you today, Lisa. Thank you so much for being on the show and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Lisa, we're going to start with the film. Whew. It is awesome and intense and shocking for some. And the ending, oh my heavens, people, you got to watch this. And it's a short. So if you are short on time, it's about 15, 16 minutes. And let me just start with this since I'm talking about the film. Lisa, we are going to be able to put a link to the film in our show notes. Is that correct? So people can see it?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Amazing. So I love this fun fact about you that you were told by 3 psychics throughout your life that you were going to make your splash with a pencil. And the first draft of this extraordinary film, The Next Girl, was written in pencil.
Oh, you know about that, huh?
It's been dug up. We dug it up. Tell our audience the spirit of this film, what it's about.
Sure. So it's about a young girl who's born into a dystopian world, and her and her counterparts have absolutely no autonomy. over their bodies, their life, their choices, and their future. And a lot of people I know will, especially with the recent release of The Sound of Freedom, I think a lot of people will see it as a human trafficking film. And that's okay, because that's also something that exists that is, to say it's horrible is an understatement. But it portrays this girl in a way that we can relate to it, because I think as humans, it's easier for us to empathize if another human is going through something. And that's the platform used to get people to pay attention. And I think it's important to address that there are two purposes here. This is twofold. Yes, this movie is for vegans. This is for people who already know, because once they see it, then they realize this is another tool they can use to share with the people that are just on that edge, or who are curious, or really need to understand something. And maybe this is a way to approach them different than other ways they've attempted to. Friends, family, coworkers. Mm-hmm. But it's also for people who are not vegan, because they won't see a documentary or a film about animals, because at that moment in time, when they think about it, it's not on their radar. They don't care, or they think it's not true.
Mm-hmm. Or they just don't want to know. They know, but they don't want to know. Find that a lot.
Or they're in denial. Exactly. And I don't know if we'll get to those people with this film, because if they're in denial, even showing them footage, they'll say, well, this is a very, very random thing. They don't realize that this occurs every day, all over the world, all the time.
Right. In your film, The Next Girl, you use human women to show what cows endure. And I found this really powerful. And even though I have been on many dairies and calf farms, and I am brokenhearted over what happens in the dairy industry, the fact that you used humans was so effective. And I'd like you to explain a little bit about because you know so much, because you were inspired to make this film to talk about dairy cows. Can you tell us what goes on in the life of a dairy cow that people need to know? Because what people think is, oh, well, I'm going to give up meat because cows die and for meat, and that's bad. But I think I'll keep drinking my dairy and eating my dairy because those cows don't die. They have a happy life in the fields.
Full disclosure, I have only officially been involved in the animal rights genre for about 5 years, but I have seriously done my research, especially for this film. And what I've learned is that dairy cows are actually treated much worse than cows that are raised for meat and leather. The cyclical nature of what goes on at these dairy farms, and this is small farms all the way up to industrial giant farms. It doesn't matter. So when people say, oh, but I buy my milk from a small farm, it doesn't matter. These cows are literally born into a dystopian slavery. They have no choice. They are continuously kept in a perpetual state of pregnancy by artificial insemination. And it's done in an area called a rape rack. And that's a term that the industry came up with. That's not a term that we came up with. They call it a rape rack. So that of itself is just daunting. They're kept in a perpetual state of pregnancy that they can continuously produce milk, because we're women, we're human. The only way we produce milk is if we're pregnant and we have a baby. But when they give birth, their babies are taken from them. If it's a male calf or a bobby, it's either killed immediately and thrown in the trash, or it's put in a small crate where it can't move between 14 to 16 weeks and then sold for veal. If it's a female calf, then that female calf is born into the same enslaved life as their mother, and then they eventually take the place of the older cows. Now, the cows I don't know, 30 years their lifespan is, but between 3 and 5 years is basically the lifespan that I've learned on a dairy farm. And then after they can no longer give birth anymore because they're just broken, they are also sent to slaughter. And that is usually, I believe, low grade ground beef or dog and cat food. This is what I've learned. So it's a systematic or systemic cyclical issue that just keeps going on and on and on. And as it says at the end of the film, at any given time, there's about 270 million cows in the dairy industry at any given time. So you're talking about hundreds of millions of beings that have feelings, that love, that feel pain, that feel anxious, that feel joy, that are going through this. And it's happening right now.
I just want to add that it's not only the male calves that are put in small enclosures for veal if they're not killed for beef, but the female calves, the dairy calves, are removed immediately from their mothers and put in an enclosure that is pretty much the same size as the veal. It's about as long as your bathtub and 5 inches wider, in certainly California hutches, and they are put there for 3 months. So the dairy calves who are going to be enslaved for their milk fare no better when they're babies than the male calves. True. Except for that they're apt to live, but I don't know if that's better.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, and Alexandra, I wanted to talk about this some because you were recently on a calf farm and you measured your bathtub 2 days later because we texted about it. Most people will talk about the amount of animals that suffer, right? And so some will kind of even, I'll say, dismiss dairy and the dairy cows in the industry because there's only 270 million of them living on planet Earth at any given time. I mean, we have 9 billion chickens that we're going to kill this year in the US alone. So that is a lot more animals. But what I often want to point to, and I know I've said it on this podcast, but I just think it's so important because it really lends into why you made this film, is that a chicken's life is, and none of us are eating chicken here, right? But 12 weeks max. Yeah. And a dairy cow's life, as you mentioned, it stretches 4.5, sometimes 5. Yeah. And then you have to do the math. That is 250. If they live to a little over 4.5, that is 252 weeks of suffering per cow. So the length of the suffering and the torture. I mean, if I had to come back to, if I died to come back tomorrow as a farm animal, it's going to be a chicken because I got 12 weeks of hell. It's not going to be a dairy cow. And Alexandra, you just coming off that recent farm, I've been wanting to ask you this, but I wanted to wait till today. What struck you the most? You're on a dairy cow calf farm, right? So not the veal calves, not the males, but the females. And you've been on them before, but what struck you the most this time or shocked you?
Oh, just, this was a farm, and Lisa, we were documenting. So it wasn't that I went to the farm, the facility manager and said, could I please see your farm? We were there at night, was documenting the conditions because I am obsessed with how dairy cows are overlooked by so many well-meaning people when it comes to their choices of, what animals they're going to care about and how they're going to change their eating habits accordingly. And I want to show how horrible these animals are treated. And I am especially moved by the little babies who are taken away, just like your film educates us about, taken away from their mothers right away and then put into, especially in California and Arizona, these wooden boxes. And they measure about 32 by 56 inches, which is hard for people to really grasp. But I went and measured my bathtub to see the inside of my bathtub, so not the rim. And it's the length of my bathtub with 5 more inches on the side. And that is what these cows stay in for 3 months. And it just, horrifies me that I just always get moved by these babies who are so desperate to
Yeah.
suckle and can't.
Yeah.
And this farm, I don't even call it a farm, pardon me. This facility
Yeah.
had 6,000 hutches where they put babies. And the reason that that farmers, other dairy people who manage dairy facilities bring their babies to these places is because it takes a lot to raise a baby, and they just want it to be out of their hands so that they can get someone else to do it. And so they put them in these terrible, terrible places called calf ranches.
Yep.
And yeah, I just want people to know about it. And that's why I'm so happy that your film really opens the door here. Can you talk a little bit about the separation? Because you have some powerful footage in both the beginning and the end of your films about separation.
The separation of the baby and the mother.
Yeah.
Well, first I want to point something out. You keep using the word baby, and it's accurate. We're eating babies. Humans are eating babies. But I find that we in the industry, the genre, the movement, the community, whatever you want to call it, we are obsessing about the details of the suffering. And again, yes, it's important, but there's suffering. There is suffering on so many levels. We need to just get people to stop. And all they have to do is try all these other products that are out there. There are incredible cheeses. There are incredible ice creams. There are incredible milks. There are incredible yogurts. And I mean, that's all we're asking people to do, is just try it.
Lisa, yes, but they don't taste exactly alike. And so people will tell you, well, it doesn't taste like milk. Exactly. It doesn't taste like cheese. Exactly. And so there's that added need to say, well, yes, but here's why you're changing, from something you really like to something that you haven't yet gotten used to.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people are reluctant to try it because they think that they're not going to like it. But in my case, and I come from a restaurant background and we do food festivals, and I hear people talk about it all the time. Oh my God, I had no idea how good it was or how good it could be. It's just about getting people to try these things, try these brands. There are going to be people that are going to say, oh, it just doesn't taste like what I'm used to. I have a friend who she's looking for a milk that she can put in her tea because she hasn't yet found a milk that matches that same, taste and creaminess or whatever. So someone suggested Not Milk, which is one of those brands out there. And she tried it and she said, oh, okay, I could deal with this. It's just about trying different things, because even in the omnivore sector, there are things that people don't like. You're not going to like everything. But the separation with that we are showing in the movie is terrible. These women are giving birth to these babies. They're allowed to hold them for maybe 30 seconds, and then the babies are taken away. And that happens right at the beginning of the film. And you hear the painful, the screaming and the crying of the woman giving birth. I've never personally given birth, but I'm sure it's really painful. And you hear that, we show that, and they're left to sit with the baby for maybe 30 seconds. And then the baby is taken away and the mother is just distraught. I mean, these women are in this terrible existence. They have no love. They have no sense of companionship, no nothing. They're alone. They're hopeless. They're broken. And they give birth to this beautiful being that comes out of their own body. And then it gets ripped from them. And it's a terrible, terrible, heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't only happen to humans. It happens to other beings that have the same connection with their children, the same feelings for their children. Cows hold their babies in their bodies for 9 months, just like humans do. It's such a similar experience. And yet, if we do hear that it would have happened to a human, it's like, oh my God, it's trauma, it's terror, we have to do something about it. But this happens to cows every single second of every day, of every month, of every year. And somehow we are okay with that. And that disconnect, we have to connect those dots because there shouldn't be a disconnect. It's the same thing.
Well,
There
this is
are
Lisa.
beings
This
that are
is why,
suffering.
there definitely are. This is why the details are important. You going through that and explaining to people exactly what goes down. A, they can relate to it if they've had a baby. B, they can imagine what it might feel like if they haven't. And C, we have to have the details because the industry has told us that is a completely different story than what the reality is. And there's a scene in your film where your protagonist comes, upon a woman that are having her breast milk, and she looks totally ashamed. Tell us the detail about the milking process for cows, because I think that was probably the last thing that I really understood and learned. It was like, well, once this happened, they got to be milked. People think that cows like to be milked because their udders are full. What's the truth?
I have seen these terrible machines where the cows are going around like a merry-go-round, and they are connected to these machines that extract the milk from them. It's very painful. They're given a lot of antibiotics, and there's pus because they have tumors and mastitis and these terrible infections. And it happens on a daily basis. They're just continually milked until they have no more milk and it dries up. And then they're artificially inseminated again. So they go through the whole process again. And then their bodies start, again, lactating, and the baby is taken away. So it just keeps happening over and over and over again.
Each cow gets 5 babies taken away from her because every year she gives birth to a baby, and then she's basically disposed of, like you mentioned. And to add to the milking scenario, we have to remember that these cows are milked 2 to 3 times a day because they are producing more milk than is natural. Just like chickens are bred to produce, no chicken in the wild produces an egg a day. They produce maybe, I think, an egg every few weeks or something. I mean, it's just much less. Yeah. And just like that, these cows have these huge udders that fill with milk. I'm sure it's uncomfortable. It's probably like feeling like you really have to go to the bathroom.
200% more compared to a cow in 1960.
Yeah.
Just to give some reference. It's like, yeah.
And we also have to remember that when these cows are milked, they're often very pregnant because it's only at the very end of the pregnancy that the milking is stopped. So they have to stand on concrete, very pregnant. That's a lot of extra weight, standing on concrete and waiting to be milked. The milking process only takes a few minutes, actually, but that's how they can get 1,500 cows milked 3 times a day in these places, but or more.
And you're saying, Alexandra, I don't want to brush over this. They're pregnant, and people are going to wait. They're pregnant. They're being milked. They're pregnant with the next baby being milked from the previous baby.
Yeah, that's how they ensure a steady.
That's what people don't know. That's a detail that's huge.
You're right. The cow basically has maybe a month, I think, Lisa, where she's not
in between
allowed to not be milked, and she's considered dry. So so the milking process is something that I always thought, oh yeah, they like it because they need to be milked, but they have to be milked because of the system has bred them that way. And of course, because they're actually bred. And they're pregnant. And we have to remember that is not easy to be standing on concrete in these barns. A lot of times they're not let out at all. I've been on dairies where they don't let the cows out at all. They're always inside in these stalls.
Yeah, they're prisoners and they've committed no crime, basically. And I don't claim to be an expert on the dairy industry or the milking. The two of you, I'm sure you know more about it than I do. But I know that the suffering needs to stop. So as a person, as one person, an individual, I'm doing everything I can using whatever skills that I have to educate as many people as possible in different ways, because everybody learns lessons differently. So I'm, really focusing on educating people with the film, but also trying to convince people by providing options for them that are incredible. And there's no reason when you have these incredible options, you really don't have to deprive yourself. There really is no sacrifice. All you're giving up is the animal cruelty.
Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
I'd love to talk about change, right? And with this film, your hope is that many people will make a change because of what they've seen. And Farm started a like the vegan support program a long, long time ago. And Alexandra dug up that it was a study that came out that 1 of every 6 people who go vegan, eventually 5 go back to eating animals.
Yeah.
In that study, what did they ask people the reasons for this? And what were they?
I'm not privy to that.
Okay.
We've discussed it at meetings, but I think the main reason, and this is my opinion, is because they didn't have a why. I think you need a why. I think if you make a choice because you're at the time with someone that's vegan and you want to either placate them or you want to, make them happy, and then you break up or things don't work or whatever, that's not a why. You have to have a personal why, something that you are emotionally and or physically and or spiritually attached to. So it could be your health, it could be your love for the planet, it could be compassion for animals. But I think a person has to do it for a reason that means something to them. And if they don't have that, there's always a chance that they're going to revert back to the other way.
Yeah. And what some are stickier than others, I think.
Sure.
People give up oftentimes on their health, right? And on their dieting and on their trying to lose weight or this or that. People that have really profound and, let's say, scary health scenarios like a heart attack or something. We've had some of those people on the show, and they're sold. But people who just, I want to feel a little bit better, I want to have a little bit more energy, I want to lose a little bit of weight, I've found that sometimes that's just not sticky enough because we give up on ourselves. Whereas many people have a hard time knowing the truth and giving up on others, namely the animals.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it needs to be something that sticks with you. And I think that, that conditioned stimulus of thinking about it in a way where you have an attachment to the decision, that is something that I think is really important. My parents both died of cancer, and I made the decision to start being healthy because I didn't want the same future, so, and of course, the longer I was leaning in that, healthy, choices, I learned more about the animals, and then I became a vegan for the animals. But it didn't start that way. It started with me wanting to be healthy, but I think that was my why. And And I think it's important that if we do talk to people about veganism or going plant-based, that we ask them, be better listeners than telling people, what is your interest? Like, why would you think this would be something that could serve you or make you a better person? Or, how would it fit into your lifestyle, rather than just telling people, make the switch, ask them why they think they should make the switch, and then talk to them from that perspective, because everybody has different whys.
You became a vegetarian when you were very young. Tell us that story of how you became a vegetarian.
It's such a strange story. I was in high school and we were asked in science class to look at a piece of meat under a microscope. And I just couldn't eat meat after what I saw. It was just such a terrible, it was almost like gave me PTSD in a way. It was terrible. I saw this like whole world, this whole like quantum world of like a jungle almost. But yeah, that science class story was, I don't think anybody could claim that story. I think I'm the only one that's happened to.
If you think that if you had been looking at a carrot, you would have seen a lot of things too. What was it specifically about the meat? Did you see things moving around that looked like bugs, or did you see blood?
You really want me to get into it?
Yeah.
It was like I said, it was like this quantum world. And from the left side of the teacher put the meat in between these two pieces of glass, and it really kind of spread it out, and it was very thin, and from the left side came this slithering, almost like an anaconda size snake like creature, which was so much bigger than everything else, and it just sort of moved everything out of its way when it made its path from the left side of my slide to the right. And I was like, that's it. I have a fear of snakes, so maybe that was a connection. But it was just it was like watching a sci-fi film, like Tremors. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie, but it was a terrible thing. And I remember screaming like when I saw it, and the teacher was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know what I'm seeing, but I just know I'm not eating meat anymore." "What are you talking about?" "I don't know. I'm not eating meat anymore." So yeah, it was an interesting story. And I'd been talking about it like for the last couple of months, and I hadn't talked about that in decades. So it's kind of funny that people are asking me about it now. But yeah, that's why I went vegetarian. And then in 2000, went like right before the turn of the millennium, I decided I was going to go full tilt and do the vegan thing. And I'm Italian, so I was brought up on cheese and, all those things. And I made the switch. So if I can do it, anybody can do it,
We're glad you got that slide, because it was the beginning of bringing out this amazing activist.
Oh, yeah.
Wasted on someone else, although we know that probably a lot of other slides had that same worm in it.
Yeah, whatever that was. I don't know. It was very strange.
It's interesting you bring up snakes, because it makes me remember and realize that, I think the further away an animal is from us, the harder it is for us to connect. And it makes me understand people that just, can't connect at all because it's not a human, right? Absolutely. They just can't. Because I have this serious fear of water snakes. Like, I don't know why I'm going to meet a snake in the water, but I'm from Kentucky, and a lot of the lakes here, lakes there have a lot of water snakes.
Yeah, like water moccasins.
Totally. And it's just like, I don't want to harm them, but I don't want them in bed with me, but I would love a puppy in bed with me, or a kitten, like a lot of them actually. But the further it gets away from us, and if there were, I'm sure, horrible things being done to snakes right now. Of course there are, all over the world. They're eating them. They're doing something terrible.
Yeah.
I've never even looked up how to fight for snakes. So it just helps us with that mind frame. There's people that can't relate to cows. They don't get it. They can't relate. And it's just a non-conversation.
Yeah.
And that helps us, I think, to be more compassionate.
Right. Yeah. And that's why we're using humans in the movie to get people's attention,
right.
You know, and capture their attention, because it's that switch at the end that, you know, you want to hold someone and then you make that switcheroo, that bait and switch, and you're hoping that it's going to stick. And whatever conditioned stimulus is created in their brain about what they just witnessed over that 16-minute lapse of time is going to stay with them, you know? And then maybe the next time they go and purchase something or decide to order something in a restaurant or eat something, maybe they will get that feeling back, like, oh, you know, maybe I need to think about this again, because I didn't like what that felt like.
People get offended sometimes when people compare the suffering of humans with the suffering of, well, farm animals or any animals. Have you gotten any backlash about that?
No.
Good.
No, I mean, there have been thousands of people that have watched it. At the debut, the Be Kind experience in LA, we had a lot of people watch the movie, and no one said that. I think a lot of people were just shocked, crying, you know, because they maybe for the moment realized that, wow, I had no idea. One person was taken aback by the rape scene, which, you know, is not graphic in nature at all. And we intentionally shot that scene very purposefully the way we did. But it's nothing compared to what the cows go through. So yeah, but no, we did not have any negative about, oh, how are you comparing? I've heard that in my work, working for farm animal rights movement in conversation, but no one that I know of responded that way to the film.
A note about, you know, the rape scene was really well shot. I thought I could hear the buckle being undone, and the close-ups of her hands instead of actually seeing the rape makes you imagine it.
Yeah.
When they impregnate, rape a cow, the human man, generally a man, the man puts his fist inside the female cow's rectum. And puts his arm in all the way up to his elbow, it looks like. And
yeah,
then
they have gloves that go all the way up for that purpose. Yeah.
Would you like to explain? I mean, you probably how they rape the cow so that she's inseminated every.
Yeah, I know that they, like you said, they use one arm and it goes through the anus to manipulate the womb in some way, and then the other hand is used to put that long metal, push the semen into their the vaginal canal. But it's like both, you know, like. You know, and then the whole thing about the acquiring of the semen is also just, I mean, the whole thing is just, it's just so inhumane and so beneath us. But yeah, then again, it's not, right?
Share with us how they acquire the semen, because not only does she get vaginally raped, she gets anally raped at the same time, and she also
it's sodomy and
and so they also, it's not fun for the bulls either, as much as people would like to joke about it.
Yeah, I've never seen it done. I won't watch that because I very sensitive. You know, I can't volunteer at shelters. I can't do what you do, Alexandra, and go to those facilities because I'll be rendered dysfunctional. Probably my knees will buckle and I'll just pass out. I can't do that. I do what I do because that's all I can do. But I've never seen, I know that they forcefully take the semen from the bull.
I think either the farmer, I don't know why I call them a farmer, it just makes them, the facility manager will either, or the vet will either masturbate the bull, or they use electric shocks to get the semen out. But don't take me at my word. People should go and look it up for themselves if they want to know the what really happened. So on all sides, it's a really terrible, terrible business.
Lisa, we were on a Zoom leading into the film's debut in LA. You told me that you had somewhat recently broke up with your partner because he was not aligned with your activism and therefore by your everyday 3 to 4 times a day food choices. And I know we have a lot of listeners. We heard from some of them who live with people who don't share their views on animals. Mm-hmm. Elaborate on this experience, which I know was terrible for you. So I kind of feel bad in bringing it up, but I know that you can also help people as they're living in a similar scenario, and why you guys finally decided to split.
Well, first, let me say that at the beginning, I was, full disclosure, very clear about who and what I was. Our first date was at a True Foods, which is an omnivore restaurant, and yet he decided to order a vegan meal. I was very clear, and I said, please don't eat vegan for me, because I didn't want any resentment or, but, that was okay. And then they begged me to teach them about plant-based food. And in addition to being a restaurateur, I was also an executive chef. So I was able to introduce them to a lot of really great foods and meals and cooked for them and sent them off to work every day with their lunch. They lost 28 pounds in 6 weeks going plant-based and got off their blood pressure medicine and, all these wonderful things. And they were so proud telling their kids and their coworkers, oh, look at me, my girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. But eventually they learned that I wasn't only it wasn't health only for me. It was an animal thing. I love animals. Truly, I love animals. I don't eat animals. I love them. I don't want to see them exploited or used or abused. And when they realized that I was about that and that there was a movement involved, they were personally offended by that. Movements in their eyes are not good. They demonize demographics. And, he was particularly, he was a 6th generation, he came from a 6th generation farming family, although he wasn't a farmer, his family was. And just very personally offended, at my
animal farming or vegetable farming?
Both.
Okay.
And he was very personally connected to the farmer and, people who were responsible for building this country. And then all this started coming out. It was less about our relationship and more about, these opposing core beliefs that we had, I guess, which, at the beginning, I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. It was what I did for a living. He knew that. He came to my first festival. It became an issue. And then there was resentment. And then I was demonized even because I was, against the white man and the farmer and all these crazy things. And that was personal to him. That was his issues. But I think, I think people need to be honest about who and what they are from the beginning, not to be confrontatory or combative, but I think having similar core values is important. And sometimes you'll meet someone that's interested in, they're at that point in their life where they want to make a change and they're willing to learn from their partner and maybe make some changes. They may not go full tilt vegan, but they may want to make some changes, and that's a beautiful thing. But I don't think that any of us should feel bad or allow ourselves to, or allow others to make us feel bad or, guilty or less than. We are living righteous lives. We are the future. This is where humans need to be. We need to start making changes, not only for the animals. I mean, I think that's, when I speak for the 3 of us, I think that's our number one priority, but for our health, for the planet, we need to be moving in this direction. And you're right when you said earlier, there's so much misinformation. You go to these COP events that are supposed to be these incredible environmental sustainability conferences where, the heads of countries come from all over the globe and they meet at this one place and they're serving meat. And they don't talk about, animal agriculture being the number one contributor to climate change and global warming, which is true. When you look at the numbers that aren't cooked, that's what the truth is. So,
my understanding is that so COP 28 or 29 happened this year, and that vegan and vegetarian options, it was the first time they were offered.
The first time.
They discussed animal ag, but
minimally. But it was the first time. But you see, there's progress there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving the needle in the right direction. It's just not moving fast enough, or, for us anyway, but we are making progress, which is a good thing. I guess my best advice to people who are in relationships where their significant other is not vegan is to be patient, because unless you were born vegan, you weren't always vegan. And, up until the point where you made that decision, you weren't. So be patient with people, inspire them, educate them, talk to them, listen to them, and I think introduce things to them that will make their life brighter, that will add value to their life. Like, hey, let's go out for ice cream. Let's go to Cold Stone. They are serving chocolate silk ice cream now. And let's get, with some walnuts and bananas and chocolate chips and maybe some Oreo crumbles. We're not talking about health food, and share that with someone. And
yeah,
that's a beautiful thing, right? And that's totally vegan. Or go to a restaurant or introduce them to, a restaurant that serves vegan options and share a meal, or stay in and cook a nice dinner with someone, and have some wine, and just show them that just because you're vegan doesn't mean you can't live a fulfilling, loving,
flavorful
life.
Yeah.
And also we can be cool and sexy. We have beautiful things. We have pocketbooks and luggage and shoes and comforters and pillows and, beautiful furniture and home decor. We have all of that. We're not depriving ourselves of anything. It's just not animal cruelty. That's all, so that's my thing. That's the direction I'm going. And so when we do our panel discussions after the film and the questions come, I always try and move it in that direction. Yeah, this is happening. This suffering is happening. So let's just stop. And guess what? If you stop, you're not going to give up anything. That's what I focus on.
Tell us about the events that you're planning in 2024 and how people can see and support The Next Girl.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So there are screenings going on all over the country. There's actually one being hosted by a dear woman named Immerse. She's an MP in New Zealand, a member of parliament, and her team is doing a screening in New Zealand. We're working on doing one in the UK and in London, and all over the country they're doing screenings. The film festivals are, screening the movie, and we've won, I think, about 10 awards so far and counting. But in 2024, we, Farm Animal Rights Movement, we are producing 3 large-scale sustainability events in the DMV area. So we'll do Planet Virginia, Planet Maryland, and Planet DC in 2024. And these incredible events are coming from the same perspective. We want to show people that you can come to a festival, you can eat incredible food, you can, take part in all kinds of fun, family-friendly activities. You can go to a beer garden, you can see a magic show, you can hear presentations, you can listen to incredible music. And it's all plant-based. It's all sustainable. This year, coming up in 2024, we're also doing electric car innovation shows where we'll be working with electric car companies, and they'll be showing all these new electric car innovations. So, that and recycling and composting and eating sustainably and health, we're featuring all these wonderful things. So planetseriesevents.org is the website. You can go and check out the dates and what we have in store. Farm Animal Rights Movement is farmusa.org. And we have plenty of beautiful legacy programs and things that we do year round, from Meat Out to Compassionate Holidays, Ditch Dairy, where we feature Switch4Good, which is an incredible website. So we have a lot to offer people who are looking for resources and support if they're interested in taking a challenge.
I want to encourage everybody to go see your film, The Next Girl. Will it be online, or do they, is there a website that they can watch the film?
Sure. You can go to unchainedtv.com and go to recently launched, and it's there.
We'll have the link in the show notes, so nobody needs to panic on where to go.
Great,
sure.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll also be releasing it on YouTube soon. I know there's plans to do that, and then we have some plans for marketing the film and using it, giving people an opportunity to use it as a tool to help them raise money or raise awareness. If anybody's interested and they want to do a screening, please contact me, lisa@farmusa.org, or you can go to thenextgirlfilm.com and fill out the form, and we can contact you about how you can work with us to do a screening in your area.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa.